The slap came before the scream. A sharp, loud sound cut through the hot Lagos air, louder than the horns, louder than the shouting traders, louder than the pounding of feet on the busy street. People froze. A poor old man fell to the ground, his walking stick rolling away, blood slowly touching his cracked lips. A young woman stood before him, her chest rising fast, her hands still shaking in the air. No one knew that this single slap, given in anger and pride, would open a door that could never again be closed. Zuri Adebayo had always believed that respect was something you forced the world to give you. On that afternoon, dressed in a clean cream blouse and tight black skirt, holding her leather handbag like a shield, she felt important. The sun shone on her smooth brown skin, and her heels clicked loudly on the pavement as she walked through Balagan Market. To Zuri, the street was full of danger and dirt, full of people she did not want to become. She walked fast, eyes straight ahead, avoiding anyone who looked poor enough to slow her down. Around her, Lagos lived loudly. Women called out prices of tomatoes and pepper. Yellow buses pushed through crowds like angry animals. The smell of fried plantain mixed with smoke and sweat. Zuri hated this part of the city. She believed she was meant for glass buildings, quiet offices, air-conditioned rooms, and soft voices. Today, she was late for an important meeting at the fashion house where she worked. Being late was something rich people did not forgive. As Zuri stepped off the pavement, her heel caught on a loose stone. At the same moment, a rusty signboard hanging above the road began to shake, its old nails crying under the weight of wind and time. Before Zuri could notice, a hand touched her arm. "Daughter, stop," a weak voice said. The touch was gentle. Barely there. But to Zuri, it felt like an insult. She turned fast and saw him. Old. Thin. Clothes torn and dirty. Feet in broken sandals. His face was full of lines, his beard grey and rough. He smelled of dust and long days under the sun. To Zuri, he was everything she feared becoming. "Don't touch me," she shouted. Before the man could speak again, her hand moved. The slap landed hard on his cheek. The sound echoed like a gunshot. The man fell, surprised more than hurt, his body too weak to fight the ground. The signboard crashed down behind where Zuri had been standing, smashing into pieces. For a moment, no one spoke. Then voices rose. "Why did you hit him?" a woman asked. "He touched her," a young man replied. "He is a dirty beggar," someone else said. Zuri's heart beat fast, but her face stayed hard. She looked down at the old man with disgust. "You think you can touch people because you are poor," she said loudly. "Stay away from me." The old man, Baba Kofi, slowly pushed himself up with shaking hands. Blood ran from the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were calm. Deep. Sad. He looked at Zuri as if he had known her for a long time. "I was trying to save you," he said softly. Zuri laughed sharply. "Save me? From what? Your dirt?" The crowd shifted. Some people looked at the broken signboard on the road. Others looked away. Baba Kofi followed their eyes, then looked back at Zuri. He said nothing more. He picked up his walking stick, bowed his head slightly, and moved aside. Zuri turned and walked away, her heels clicking again, louder than before. Her heart slowly calmed. In her mind, she had done nothing wrong. In this city, you protected yourself or you were crushed. As she walked, she did not look back. She did not see Baba Kofi sink slowly onto a wooden bench by the roadside. She did not see him close his eyes in pain. She did not see him whisper a prayer for her. Zuri reached her office late and blamed traffic. Her friends laughed when she told them about the old man. "You did right," one said. "Poor men can be dangerous." Another added, They should know their place. Zuri smiled, but that night, when the city grew quiet and her room filled with shadows, sleep refused to come. Each time she closed her eyes, she heard the sound again. The slap. Sharp. Final. She saw the old man's eyes, not angry, not afraid, just disappointed. She pushed the thought away. Tomorrow mattered more. The future mattered more. Poverty was a monster she refused to face. Across the city, Baba Kofi walked slowly into a small rented room behind a closed shop. He cleaned his wound carefully and sat on the floor. The room was simple. A mat. A small bag. Nothing else. He opened the bag and took out a folded photograph of a woman and a young child, smiling under a mango tree. "I failed again," he whispered. Outside, Lagos did not care. The city kept breathing, moving, growing. Somewhere between pride and pain, two lives had crossed for a second, and neither understood the cost. The slap was over. But the story had only just begun. Zuri woke before her alarm, her heart racing as if she had been running. For a moment she did not know where she was, then the ceiling fan above her came into focus, turning slowly, pushing warm air around her small but neat room. Sweat clung to her skin. In her dream, an old man had stood in the middle of the road, his face bleeding, his eyes asking a question she could not answer. She sat up quickly and shook her head, angry at herself. It was just a dream. Poor people were not supposed to haunt her sleep. She rose, bathed, and dressed carefully, choosing a bright dress that made her look confident and important. The mirror showed a young woman who had worked hard to escape shame. Zuri reminded herself of that truth as she applied her makeup. She was not like the woman who sold tomatoes by the roadside or begged with children tied to their backs. She had gone to school. She had dreams. She deserved more. On the bus to work, she watched the city pass by. Tall buildings stood next to broken houses. Rich cars drove past barefoot children. Lagos was unfair, but Zuri believed unfairness was something you climbed out of, not something you cried about. She held her bag close and kept her face serious. A man selling sweets reached toward her, and she pulled away sharply. The memory of the slap flashed in her mind, and her stomach tightened. Again, she pushed it away. At the fashion house, the air was cool and smelled of perfume. This was the world Zuri wanted. Her coworkers talked about brands, trips, and rich men. During lunch, the story of the slap came up again, told with laughter. "You should have slapped him harder," one woman joked. "These people think they can do anything." Zuri laughed too, but her laugh sounded thin, even to her own ears. She did not mention the falling signboard. She did not mention the old man's eyes. Later that day, her phone rang. It was her mother, Mama Ayo. Zuri sighed before answering. The call would bring worry, as it always did. "My daughter," her mother said warmly. "Have you eaten?" "Yes, Mama," Zuri replied, impatient. "I'm busy." There was a pause. "I heard from your aunt that you slapped an old man on the street yesterday." Zuri froze. "Who told you that?" "This city has many mouths," Mama Ayo said gently. "Why would you do such a thing?" "He touched me," Zuri snapped. "I had to protect myself." Mama Ayo sighed, a deep tired sound. "Zuri, not every poor person is a danger. Some people touch to help." "You don't understand," Zuri said, anger rising. "You never did." Silence stretched between them, heavy with old wounds. "I understand poverty more than you think," her mother finally said. "I lived it so you would not have to. But do not let fear turn your heart into stone." Zuri ended the call without saying goodbye. Her hands shook. She remembered her childhood too clearly now. Long nights without light. Her mother washing clothes for rich women who never learned her name. Zuri watching from the corner, promising herself she would never beg, never bow, never be weak. That promise had kept her moving, but it had also hardened her. That evening, Zuri met her boyfriend, Colonel, at a fancy restaurant. He wore an expensive watch and spoke loudly, making sure people noticed him. Zuri liked that about him. Being seen mattered. When she told him about the slap, expecting praise, Colonel laughed cruelly. "You did right," he said. "People like that should know their place." Zuri smiled, but inside something twisted. She looked around the restaurant at people eating without worry. She wondered what would happen if she lost everything. Would anyone still see her? That night, the dream returned. This time, the old man stood on a high building, calling her name as she slipped and fell. She woke crying, her heart breaking without knowing why. Across the city, Baba Kofi sat alone in his quiet room. His body ached, but his mind was clear. He moved slowly, carefully, as he always did. From under his mat, he took out a small phone and dialed a number he rarely used. "She failed the test," he said calmly when the call was answered. There was silence on the other end, then a respectful voice. "Should we act, sir?" "No," Baba Kofi replied. "Not yet. Life must finish the lesson." He ended the call and lay back down, staring at the ceiling. Outside, rain began to fall softly, washing the streets where pride and poverty walked side by side. Zuri lay awake too, listening to the same rain beat against her window. She felt a strange heaviness in her chest, like something important was moving toward her, slow but certain. She did not know that her fear of poverty had already begun to cost her more than money ever could. The city slept uneasily, holding its breath, as two lives moved closer to a truth neither was ready to face. Morning came softly for Baba Kofi, carried by the sound of a distant rooster and the hum of a city that never truly slept. His bones ached as he sat up on the thin mat, but pain was an old friend. He welcomed it because it reminded him he was still alive. He washed his face with water from a small bowl and looked at his reflection in the cracked mirror hanging on the wall. The man staring back looked poor, tired, almost invisible. That was exactly how he wanted it. Outside, children were already running through the narrow street, laughing as if the world had never hurt anyone. Baba Kofi smiled faintly. He stepped out, his walking stick tapping the ground, and greeted people who barely noticed him. To them, he was just another old man with nothing. To him, there were lessons walking on two legs. He made his way to a small roadside store where a woman sold porridge. She always gave him a little extra without asking questions. Baba Kofi thanked her and sat nearby, watching life unfold. A young man pushed past an old woman to get on a bus first. A rich woman dropped coins for a beggar without looking at his face. A boy shared bread with his smaller sister. Kindness and cruelty moved side by side, often wearing the same smile. As he ate, his thoughts returned to Zuri. Not with anger, but with sadness. He had seen that look before. Fear dressed as pride. Pain hiding behind sharp words. Long ago, he had worn it himself. His mind drifted back many years, across borders and time, to Accra. Back when he had another name people spoke with respect. Kwame Mensah. A man who owned buildings taller than his own dreams. A man who believed money could fix anything. He remembered his wife, Oma, gentle and strong, always reminding him to slow down. He remembered their son, Kojo, running into his arms after school. He remembered missing birthdays, missing dinners, missing life, because meetings mattered more. Until the day greed knocked too hard. A factory he owned collapsed because he had refused to pay for proper repairs. Workers died. Among them were Oma and Kojo, visiting the site that day. In one moment, his world ended. No amount of money could bring them back. No apology could heal the hole in his chest. After the funeral, Kwame disappeared. He gave his businesses to trusted hands and walked away from his name. He chose a life where people did not bow or beg. A life where he could see the truth in their eyes before they saw his wallet. Since then, he had walked African cities quietly, helping where he could, watching where he must. He had learned that wealth often hid ugly hearts, and poverty sometimes hid angels. The slap from Zuri had not surprised him. It had only confirmed what he feared. Later that day, the pain in his chest returned stronger. Baba Kofi sat on a bench, breathing slowly. A young street boy noticed his struggle and ran to him. "Grandpa, are you okay?" the boy asked. Baba Kofi smiled weakly. "I will be," he said. The boy ran off and returned with water. Baba Kofi drank and placed his hand on the boy's head. "Never stop being kind," he whispered. By evening, Baba Kofi could barely walk. He returned to his room and lay down, sweat covering his body. He knew this pain. His time was growing short. Slowly, he reached for the phone again and called the same number. "I need you to come," he said quietly. Within hours, a black car stopped far from the narrow street. Two well-dressed men walked carefully through the area, their shoes dirtying on purpose. They entered Baba Kofi's room and knelt before him. "Sir," one said softly. "You should be in a hospital." Baba Kofi shook his head. "Not yet. We have been watching the woman," the other said. "Zuri Adebayo. Her company is seeking investment. She may meet you soon." Baba Kofi closed his eyes. "Let her come," he said. "Let her see." They helped him up and left quietly, leaving no trace. Across the city, Zuri's life was speeding up. Her boss announced that a powerful investor was coming to Lagos. A man who invested in African businesses but never showed his face. Everyone wanted to impress him. Zuri worked late into the night, pushing herself harder than ever. This was her chance. She imagined a new life. New clothes. New respect. No more fear. But small things began to go wrong. Colonel stopped calling as much. Her boss corrected her sharply in meetings. A rumor spread that the investor valued character more than skill. Zuri laughed it off, but inside, something stirred. That night, she dreamed again. This time, the old man stood in clean clothes, his face shining. He reached out his hand, but when she tried to take it, he turned away. She woke with tears on her face. Days later, Baba Kofi stood before a mirror, wearing a simple but clean suit. His back was straight despite the pain. The poor man was fading. The truth was preparing to step into the light. Outside, Lagos moved fast, unaware that judgment and mercy were about to meet in the same room. The secret the city did not know was this: the poor man Zuri had slapped was not waiting for revenge. He was waiting for truth. And when truth arrived, it would arrive too late to save her from herself. The building stood tall and quiet in the heart of Victoria Island, its glass walls shining under the Lagos sun like they held secrets inside. Zuri had passed it many times without ever stepping in. Today, as she walked through the wide doors, her hands felt cold despite the heat outside. This was not just another meeting. This was the meeting. The kind that could lift her from the middle of life into the world she had chased since childhood. Inside, the air smelled of polish and calm. Security guards nodded as she passed, their eyes sharp but respectful. Her heels echoed softly on the marble floor, and each sound reminded her how far she had come. She told herself to breathe, to smile, to remember her worth. Yet something heavy pressed on her chest, a feeling she could not explain. Her boss, Mrs. Denjuma, gathered the selected team in a small waiting room. The investor will meet each of you briefly, she said. He values honesty and behavior more than numbers. Speak clearly. Be respectful. Zuri nodded, her heart beating faster. Behavior. The word rang loudly in her head. As they waited, Zuri's mind drifted back to Beligan Market. She shook her head, annoyed. That old man again. Why now, when everything was finally going right? She adjusted her dress and forced her thoughts forward. In another room upstairs, Baba Kofi sat quietly in a large leather chair. The room was bright and clean, filled with soft light and expensive art. His suit was simple, but it fit him well. The walking stick leaned against the table beside him. His face looked stronger today, but inside, his body was fighting a losing battle. Two assistants stood nearby, ready to act at his smallest sign. Are you sure about this? One asked gently. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Baba Kofi smiled faintly. We all owe the world something, he said. Even when the world does not ask. The first candidate was called in. Baba Kofi listened, asked questions, and dismissed them kindly. One by one, they came and went. He watched how they spoke to the cleaners, how they greeted the guards, how they reacted when they thought no one important was watching. These small moments mattered more than any report. Then he heard her name. Zuri Adebayo. His fingers tightened slightly around the walking stick. He stood slowly. When Zuri entered the room, her breath caught in her throat. For a second, she could not move. The man standing by the window, looking out over the city, was dressed in a clean grey suit. His hair was neatly trimmed. His back was straight. But she knew that face. She would recognize those eyes anywhere. The world tilted. Sir, she whispered without meaning to. He turned. Their eyes met. The room fell silent. Baba Kofi looked at her calmly, as if seeing her for the first time. No anger. No surprise. Just understanding. Please sit, he said. Zuri's legs felt weak as she obeyed. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. Every word she had thrown at him on the street rose in her mind like fire. Dirty. Useless. Stay away from me. She tried to speak about work, about ideas, about growth, but her voice shook. Baba Kofi listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned forward slightly. Tell me, he said softly, who do you think I am? Zuri swallowed hard. Tears burned her eyes. I don't know, she said. I thought you were poor. A small nod. And because of that, you believed you were better. The words cut deep. Zuri broke. She slid from her chair and knelt on the floor. I am sorry, she cried. I didn't know. If I had known. Baba Kofi raised a hand gently. Stand up, he said. Do not kneel for money. Kneel for truth. She stood, shaking. He walked slowly to the window and spoke without looking at her. That day on the street, I touched your arm because a sign was falling. If it had hit you, it could have killed you. Zuri gasped, covering her mouth. The room seemed to close in on her. I did not tell you then, he continued, because a heart that judges cannot hear. Silence filled the space. You are talented, Baba Kofi said finally. But talent without kindness is dangerous. I forgive you. But forgiveness does not remove consequences. Zuri's hope shattered. Please, she whispered. This job, this chance, it means everything to me. Baba Kofi turned to face her. His eyes were sad. And that, he said, is the problem. He signaled to his assistant. We are done. As Zoe was led out, her legs barely held her. In the hallway, her boss avoided her eyes. By evening, the news spread quickly. Zoe's contract was ended. Her behavior was questioned. Doors closed one by one. That night, Baba Kofi sat alone again. The pain returned, sharp and deep. He pressed a hand to his chest and breathed slowly. "Time," he whispered. Across the city, Zoe sat on her bed, staring at nothing. Her phone lay silent. Her dreams lay broken. She finally understood who the poor man had been. And the understanding came far too late. Zoe did not leave her room the next morning. The city outside moved as always, horns shouting, people rushing, life pushing forward without care. Inside, her room felt smaller than ever. Clothes lay untouched on the chair. Her phone stayed silent on the table. The world that once chased her now acted as if she never existed. She replayed the meeting again and again in her mind. The clean room. The quiet power. The words that cut deeper than shouting ever could. "I forgive you." But forgiveness does not remove consequences. Each time she remembered them, her chest tightened until breathing hurt. By noon, her boss sent a short message. "Your contract has been terminated. Please return company items." No explanation. No goodbye. Zoe dropped the phone and laughed softly, a broken sound. 4 years, she had believed one meeting, one rich man, one lucky moment would save her. Now that same moment had destroyed everything. She thought of Kunal and reached for her phone. After several rings, he answered. "Zoe, I'm busy," he said quickly. "I lost my job," she whispered. There was a pause. Then his voice changed, colder. "That's unfortunate." "I need you," she said. "I think we should take a break," Kunal replied. "This is not the right time for me." The call ended. Zoe stared at the screen until it went dark. She understood then. Love that depended on success was not love. It was business. That evening, she finally stepped outside. The street felt different now. People she once ignored looked straight through her. The pride that had lifted her head high was gone, replaced by a heavy shame that bent her shoulders. She walked without knowing where she was going, her feet carrying her back to Balagan Market. The same noise. The same smells. The same chaos. But she was not the same person. She stopped at the spot where it had happened. The place where her hand had risen, where her voice had cut, where Baba Kofi had fallen. The signboard had been fixed. Life had moved on. Only she was stuck. Her eyes filled with tears. Nearby, a small girl tugged at her dress. "Auntie," the girl said softly, "do you have something for me?" Zoe flinched. Once, she would have pulled away. Now, she looked into the girl's eyes and saw herself years ago. Hungry. Afraid. Invisible. "I'm sorry," Zoe whispered. "I have nothing." The girl nodded and walked away without anger. Zoe watched her go, pain tearing through her chest. She had nothing to give because she had spent her life taking. Across the city, Baba Kofi lay in a private hospital room, machines humming softly around him. The suit, the power, the name Kwame Mensah meant nothing here. He was just a man fighting to breathe. His assistant stood nearby, worried. "You should rest," one said. "The doctors say stress will make it worse." Baba Kofi smiled weakly. "I am resting," he replied. "My work is done." That night, he asked for pen and paper. Slowly, carefully, he wrote a letter. Not to Zoe alone, but to anyone who would read it. He wrote about pride. About how poverty was not dirt, and wealth was not proof of goodness. He wrote about the day he lost his family and learned that money could not buy mercy. He folded the letter and handed it to his assistant. "Give this to the woman," he said. After what?" the assistant asked. Baba Kofi closed his eyes. "After I am gone." Zuri returned home late, her feet aching. She found her mother waiting at the door. "I heard," Mama Ayo said softly. Zuri broke down in her arms. For the first time in years, she cried without holding back. She told her mother everything. The slap. The truth. The man she had judged. Mama Ayo listened and held her tightly. "My daughter," she said, "life has taught you a hard lesson." "I ruined everything," Zuri sobbed. "If only I knew." Mama Ayo gently lifted her face. "Knowing earlier would not change who you were then," she said. "What matters is who you choose to become now." The next morning, news spread quietly through business circles. Kwame Mensah, the billionaire investor, had passed away during the night. No long speech. No cameras. Just a simple message. Zuri read the news on her phone and screamed. She dropped to her knees, her body shaking. Tears flooded her eyes as regret crashed over her like a wave. He was gone. The man she had slapped. The man who had forgiven her. The man who could never again hear her apology. Days later, a package arrived at her door. Inside was the letter. Zuri read it slowly, her hands trembling. Each word felt like a mirror held to her soul. When she reached the end, she collapsed, crying harder than ever before. She understood now. Not just who Baba Kofi was, but what he had tried to teach her. An understanding, she learned, could be the most painful gift of all when it arrived after the door had already closed. The truth had been revealed. But it had come too late to save the man who carried it. The funeral was quiet, almost too quiet for a man whose name once opened doors across Africa. There were no long speeches, no loud cameras, no gold-covered coffin. Just a simple wooden box, a few white flowers, and a small group of people who truly knew what Kwame Mensah had become after he stopped being rich in the way the world understood richness. Zuri stood at the back, dressed in black that felt heavier than cloth. The wind brushed her face gently, but inside her chest, nothing moved. She had not slept since the news of his death. His letter stayed pressed against her heart, folded so many times it had softened like old fabric. She listened as a priest spoke about humility and love, but the words floated past her. All she could see was the moment on the street. Her hand rising. His body falling. His eyes, calm even in pain. If only I had known, she thought again. But the truth burned now. Knowing earlier would not have changed the heart she had carried then. After the burial, people left quietly. Zuri remained behind. She knelt on the dry earth and whispered, "I am sorry." The ground did not answer. Days turned into weeks. Zuri's old life disappeared completely. Friends stopped calling. The city she once chased no longer looked at her. For the first time since childhood, she walked Lagos without a destination. She sold her fine clothes. She sold her shoes. She kept only what she needed. Not because she wanted praise, but because the weight of things reminded her too much of the woman she used to be. One afternoon, she returned to Balagan Market. Not as a proud woman rushing through dirt, but as a quiet soul looking for meaning. She carried small bags of food and water. When she offered them, some people stared in surprise. Others smiled. Some did not trust her. She accepted all of it. At the exact spot where it had happened, she stopped. The noise faded in her ears. Slowly, she sat on the same bench where Baba Kofi had once rested. She closed her eyes. "I remember," she whispered. "Every day. A shadow fell across her. She opened her eyes to see an old man standing before her. His clothes were torn. His face was tired. He reached out his hand slightly as if to stop her. For a second, fear flashed through her. Then she stood quickly. "I'm sorry," she said before he could speak. "Please forgive me." The old man blinked in surprise. "I only wanted to warn you," he said. "A cart is rolling behind you." Zuri turned and stepped aside just in time. The cart passed harmlessly. Her breath shook. Her eyes filled with tears. She turned back to the man and gently held his hands. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for seeing me." The man smiled and walked away, confused but warm. Zuri sat back down, her body trembling. The slap echoed in her mind again, loud and clear. This time, she did not push it away. She let it hurt. She let it teach. Years passed. Zuri never became rich. She never returned to fashion offices or glass buildings. Instead, she worked with a small group that helped street children learn to read. She used what little she had to feed those she once feared. People in the market began to know her. Not by her clothes, but by her kindness. At night, she still dreamed of Baba Kofi. Sometimes he smiled. Sometimes he only looked at her. The pain never left completely. It stayed as a reminder, a scar that shaped her steps. One evening, as the sun sank into the orange sky, Zuri stood at the edge of the same street. The city sounded the same, but her heart was different. She finally understood the full truth. The poor man was never poor. The rich woman was never rich. Pride had blinded her eyes. Kindness had waited quietly. Some lessons arrive early and save us. Others arrive late and stay forever. Zuri looked into the moving crowd and whispered a promise she would keep until her last breath. "I will never judge a soul by their clothes again." And somewhere beyond the noise of the city, the echo of a slap faded into silence, replaced by something stronger. Mercy. If this story touched your heart, do not let it end here. Subscribe to this channel for more powerful African stories that teach, heal, and awaken the soul. Like, share, and stay with us till the end of every tale, because the next story may change the way you see the world.